Madhu sir.
I'm audible now?
Yes sir, you are audible sir. Madhu sir, please unmute now.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Okay. Very good afternoon, dear students. Very happy to meet you all in this wonderful afternoon. So earlier, we will start the new unit, this unit number 6. Today. People to join here. Meanwhile, if you have any queries regarding the previous chapters, you can ask. I am happy to answer all your queries. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for you. The chat is also open. If you want to unmute yourself, you're most welcome. You can unmute yourself in class. Any questions, any queries related to the topics which we have discussed in last class regarding international portfolio management, objectives, meanings, objectives, advantages, risk related to international portfolio management, how to overcome the risk. So if you understand the chapter what we discussed yesterday, in continuation with that, we are going to discuss the 6th unit today, which is quite interesting unit and very important as well. Any questions, any queries? Chat is also open. Okay. Well, so there is no questions. So we will quickly move on. Listen, I'm happy to move you to the next unit, which is called international risk management. Very much important chapter. So far, what we discussed is entirely different, and what we are going to discuss today is entirely different. The point which I want to convey to you is this is not only the risk management of international business. Various techniques which we are going to learn from this chapter, which would help us to overcome the risk. Overcome the risk. Before that, before getting into the chapter, voice is not audible. Am I not audible to you all? Am I not audible? Is it audible now? Is it okay now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vishwa. Thank you. Listen, this is why I am telling this is more important chapter is more practical chapter two. What we discussed in Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 4, Unit 5, all are conceptual understanding. But this is very practical and more applicable towards the risk management as well. As I said earlier, the international portfolio management is now become a separate discipline from 1990s, in mid of 1990s onwards. This risk management will play an important role, ladies and gentlemen. After the emerging of IT industries in India, and that globalization as well, opening up of economy, this risk management becomes an important role. And in a general scenario, the risk management, immediately the risk management, the name, if you heard about the risk management, immediately what comes to the mind is insurance. Insurance. That is apart from our discussion. Why? Because this is financial risk management. And there is a separate discipline, FRM, Financial Risk Management is there in CFA, Certified Financial Accountant. So coming back to this is unit number 6, last but first unit, International Risk Management. 10 hours is allotted for this chapter. And the chapter goes like this: foreign exchange risk. What is foreign exchange? You know very well about that. In chapter 4, we discussed what is foreign exchange, what are all the different segmentations and foreign exchanges we discussed in chapter 4. And what are all the risk uh, avoiding techniques. Ladies and gentlemen, we are all very clear that risk cannot be avoided, risk can be accepted or maintained in the same level. Please try to understand this cannot be avoided. You cannot escape from the risk. There is a great saying that there is certainty of risk. Risk is certain. Risk is certain. That is what, from the very beginning of the session, I am telling that business will face loss. Business will face loss. Sometimes it will earn profit. So if you ask a question, in business, profit is certain or loss is certain. It is particularly loss is certain. No doubt about that. So profit may come, may not come. But loss is certain, ladies and gentlemen. That is why the subject emerged. It's because of this assumption. There is no chance of any business or corporates to overcome or to avoid this uh, concept called risk. So we ourselves getting into the practice that we want to maintain the risk, maintaining of risk. See, what word I am using very much important. Maintaining of risk. Sometimes we can reduce the risk. Some a situation we can transfer the risk to the third party, but nonetheless, we want to suffer. We want to suffer because of this loss. Entirely, you can't able to avoid losses. That is what the point which I would like to convey to you. And in coming to this financial position, risk is a major task, and there is a survey that it is explaining to us, and it gives an overview that in 2025, from 2025 onwards, as like a big data analytics, this risk assessor or risk managers are having a wide scope in the employment market. So no doubt about that. All these things what we are going to discuss in this chapter will become the base for all those further studies. Coming back to this, how we can maintain or transfer or we can minimize the risk in finance, which already we know the familiar term which is called as hedging. Hedging is a tool where you can able to avoid, not avoid, you can minimize the risk to the maximum extent. That's all. And hedging techniques, we have different kinds of hedging techniques having a practice in the market, which is called as forward market, futures market, options forward contract, future contract, options, and swaps. All these forwards, futures, options, and swaps in a single term, it is called as the derivative market. Derivative market. We discussed a lot about this derivative market. Derivative is a derived value, what we call as derivative. For an underlying asset, a derived value will be there. That value which is called as a derivative. Derivative is nothing but a contract. Simply, for our basic understanding, if you want to get into the contract, Obviously, what is required? Two different people are required, buyer as well as seller. So without having a two people, you can't enter into the contract. Contract Act, if you enter, if you read the Contract Act, what is contract? You come to know that Section 2E, it is clearly stating that contract is an agreement between two or more parties. Then what is agreement? Again, Section 2H clearly states that agreement is to do or abstain to do something. All these are not finance, it is from the mercantile law, which I am talking about here, just for your understanding. Why? Because all these things are contracts. The contracts, whenever the word contract uses, Financial Act as well as the Contract Act want to be taken in the place of power. So if anything goes wrong, Financial Act as well as the Contractual Act will come into the force. That is why contract is an agreement. An agreement is an understanding where to do or abstain to do something. So that is what and the definition goes like this. What is promise? A promise is a promise or set of promises forming consideration is called agreement. Agreement is, see, contract is an agreement. Agreement is nothing but a promise or set of promises forming in consideration is called agreement. In a general scenario, all these things are comes under the term what is called as contract. And section 14 clearly states that there are some essentials of contracts, under which the first and foremost essentials of contract is there should be two parties, two or more parties should be there. Two or more parties should be there. So whatever the contract you are entering, either it may be a forward contract, future contract, or option contract, there must be two or more persons want to enter into the contract. So all those things what we are going to discuss is just forwards, futures, and options, and the special contract what we call as swaps. We have different kinds of swaps, different kinds of options. While going into the subject, we can go deeper into meanings and types, and the next entirely a different scenario what we are going to discuss, and quite interesting as well, is what we call as global financial crisis. What we encountered so far we are going to discuss with the cases and the serious effect which this financial crisis impacted on the economy. All those things we are going to discuss in this chapter. While talking about this global economic crisis, uh, I remember the book which I read recently, which is called as The Psychology of Money, which is written by Morgan Housel. The best times of best New York Times seller. This book, in a very introductory page, that is preface page, the author used to define this financial crisis. Um, Once a person asked about this financial crisis, how the person sharing the experience of financial crisis plays an important role. If time permits, I show that Morgan Housel video also too in the financial crisis. Why? Because uh, in the essence of that particular preface is everything you want to experience. Then only you come to know the effect simply by reading what is the cause and effect of economic crisis. Obviously you come to know the conceptual understanding. By the same way, you will not feel it, how heavy it is. So it is very much important for us to understand the financial crisis and impact of financial crisis. By the same way, if financial crisis is a 0 point, if financial crisis is a 0 point, before the financial crisis, there will be some symptoms. With the effect of the symptoms, we will reach this economic crisis. After this 0 point, there will be another session which is explains us what are all the causes of financial crisis. That is very much important, ladies and gentlemen. And India is also affected by many of these crises, the 1930 Great Depression till 2008 Lehman Brothers. We faced many depressions, and by the same way, particularly in India, after this Lehman Brothers, 2012, if I'm not wrong, only in India we faced
some kind of slight recession, and still it continues till 2017. And after 2017, many of that sectors are uh, started booming. But particularly after 2017, one particular industry started going for the deep recession, which is called as automobile industries. Very recent things which happened, which is flourishing in our memory. So from 2018, 17, 18 onwards, nearly 8 quarters, nearly 2 years, the growth was in a downtrend. The growth of automobile industry was in a downtrend. It is very clearly evident that 2017, after 2017 second half, it is after June 2017 till 2019 September. Obviously, it is followed by pandemic as well. That is what the point which I want to convey to you. There is a drastic sales down in four-wheeler as well as the two-wheeler in this automobile industry. And yes, of course, all those things what we are going to discuss in this economic recession or financial crisis so far. And there is a prediction that every 10 years the economic cycle goes to a slight recession and it will automatically come back. By the same way, 2010 Lehman Brothers, by the same time 2020, again we felt last 4 5 quarters that macroeconomic indicators are not in a right values. It reflects automatically. It reflects, and um, the World Economic Forum conclave was happened, and 2021 report was submitted by World Economic Forum. In that forum, it is declared that 7.7 -7.7% the GDP, India's total GDP was there being in 2020. It will be negative, and the same economic forum is predicted that in 2021 in India's economic growth will be of 11%, positive 11%. Kindly think, ladies and gentlemen, last year our growth rate was -7.7%, and the next year we are going to attain 11%. Is it possible thing for India, a country like India, to attain 11% over the years? Listen, last year -7.7. The next upcoming years, what we are going to achieve is 11%. When we can achieve 11%, this -7.75% want to come to zero. For that, we want to grow 7.7% positive. After that, we want to reach 11%. So almost 18% growth in over the period of 1 year is not possible. It's not possible. So even India is also facing many recessions, and particularly the developed country, United States, faced a many recession in their lifetime. All those things what we are going to discuss in this economic recession, and causes, effects, impacts, what are all the constructive measures we can take to overcome all these economic recessions or economic backgrounds, and a brief discussion on recent American and European financial crisis. All those things with the cases and with the practical experiences, we will explain all those things. This is how this chapter is going to be in this session, ladies and gentlemen. Quite, if you feel bored, I can't able to do anything. Why? Because very raw subject, raw topics. What we are going to discuss: economic recessions, poverty, how the recessions, the economic cycle, how it goes, and if he reaches the recession, the next stage is the deep recession. And once you reach the deep recession, some countries will not having a good rebound from this recession, and they will be landed up in depression. There are some countries evidently available. There are some countries uh, during this recession time, people are not having any strategic decisions out of which they will be landed up in deep recession. So all those things, all those cases, what we are going to discuss in this chapters. Why I am telling these chapter schemes, because you want to be mentally prepared and you want to sit in my class. And if you have any queries, always I am happy to answer all your queries. Slowly we will move with the chapter, what is foreign exchange risk. So we can dive into the subject, what is foreign exchange risk. While talking about the foreign exchange risk, in between, lot of risks are there. If you speak domestically, all the other factors remains constant. Kindly listen, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, Talking about the domestic industries, domestic trade, the political stability, financial stability, interest rate stability, fixed currency rate, loans availability, policies of governments, legal frameworks, everything remains constant. Then what risk in the domestic factors is sometimes political or automatic opening up of economy. According to the demand and supply, your product demand will be high or low. That we can't able to do anything. Why? Because of the market mechanics. We are not having any control over it. Okay, but if you enter into the international trade, if you are entering into the international business, all the factors which remain constant in the domestic trade will become variable and will become unknown to you when you enter into the international trade. That is what the greatest risk, why we want to read about the risk, why we want to learn, what are all the techniques we want to going to handle about the risk. That is what the main thing, main objective of this chapter. So coming back to this, what is foreign exchange risk means? The foreign exchange risk refers to the losses. The risk here is losing the value, losing the capital, or due to the economic circumstances, political circumstances, legal circumstances, your capital will be swallowed by any of these one factors. That is what the major risk is. Kindly listen, ladies and gentlemen. Generally, what is risk to the investor is their capital will be swallowed. That fear is a risk. That fear factor is a risk factor in all the trades, whether it is a domestic trade or an international. As we all know that in the investment part, there are two different uh, yields are there. One is a normal yield, which is given by us in the form of dividends or in any other forms. By the same way, there is another yield which is called as capital appreciation. The general investor's mindset is even if there is no capital appreciation, at least I want the capital back. Yes, sir. No one wants to lose their own capital. So that is what the risk component is here is all about. So this is domestically how an investor thinks in a perspective to safeguard his own capital. By the same way, parallelly, you want to think in an international scenario where you want to be protect yourself from the international risks. What are all the international risks are there? Political instability, exchange rate risk, legal risk, exchange value risk, your value currency appreciation or depreciation, everything plays an important role while talk about the international risk exposure. This is what we call as international risk exposure. Sometimes while doing the international trade, the information itself become a risk for us. Some of the informations you are sitting in a domestic registered office, you will not get the full-fledged information what is happening in the other end of your foreign country. That itself become a risk factor while doing an international trade. So like this foreign exchange risk. As we all know from the Bretton Woods conference, all we are accepting that fluctuating rate of fixing the prices. By the same way, the governments or the country's central bank will have an authority to get a permission from the World Bank to implement a fixed rate system for some point of time to control over their own foreign exchange. Sometimes to make up this balance of trade or balance of payment, the fixed rate is possible once we get the permission from the higher people. That is why on the time of discussion, we discussed the China repeatedly devalue their own currencies through which their balance of trade, notionally their balance of trade will be almost positive. We all know that even in this during pandemic, India achieved the positive balance of trade because of less transactions, The point which I want to convey here is the international risk exposure is not a simple task which is commonly focusing on one particular exchange rate only. It includes, it is an inclusion of all the elements. That is what the point which I want to convey to you. Coming back to this particularly, what is this foreign exchange risk refers to? Foreign exchange risk refers to the losses that an international financial transaction may incur due to the currency fluctuations. Simple scenario, we discussed these things in many times in the classes as well. If I am entering into the contract with an exporter or an importer for a particular dollar of rupees 70, at the settlement date, if the dollar appreciates to 72 rupees, it is well and good for the exporter. Why? Because he will receive money in dollars. At the time of entering into the contract, the exchange value is 70. If he is going to convert this US dollar into an Indian currency, now he will get 72 rupees. By the same way, vice versa, if it is an importer position, what will happen? I want to pay extra 2 rupees to get $1. Obviously, the contract and the current price will get mismatched, and I want to invest more to get more rupees to get the foreign dollars. In our example, United States dollars. The risk part is this 2 rupees. By the same way, if it is goes 68 rupees, goes 68 rupees, that is also a risk for exporter. Why? Because at the time of entering into the contract, 70 rupees per dollar, but what he realizes is 68 rupees only, 2 rupees loss in the contract. We all know that business loss is certain. Now, already we are aware that we can't able to avoid these things. What we can do? That is what this chapter is all about. And further, the definitions goes like this. Also known as currency risk, foreign exchange risk, exchange rate risk, all these things are same risk. It describes that possibility that an investment value may decrease due to the change in relative values involved in the currencies. Investors may experience jurisdiction risk in the form of foreign exchange, the other country, the jurisdictional risk. Yesterday also, when we are talking about the international portfolio management, I used the same word, jurisdictional risk. Beyond the boundary risk. Okay, this is not only for individual, ladies and gentlemen. This will be applicable to the corporates, governments also. So, what are all the different types of foreign exchange risk? There are many types of foreign exchange risk, ladies and gentlemen. As I told earlier, PESTEL, P-E-S-T-A-L, P-E-L, sorry, political, economical, legal, environmental, risk. All the factors consist of risk. But particularly in this lesson, in this chapter, what we are going to deal with is foreign exchange risk, simply the currency risk for your better understanding. So that is classified into three different categories. One is transaction risk. What we are so far discussing is transaction risk, economic risk, cancellation risk. So in detail, we will discuss one by one with an example. What is transaction risk? Just before a couple of minutes, we were discussing about the US dollar 70 and between 72. That is what we call as transactional risk. At the time of entering into the contract, yes, of course, the dollar plays a value of 70 rupees. Suddenly it got appreciated. It is not in the hands of any person. Why? Because market mechanism, you know very well. According to the demand and supply, automatically the prices increases, inflated price of 72 rupees. That is what we call as transaction risk. Transaction risk is the risk faced by the company when making a financial transaction between the jurisdiction. This will not happen within the jurisdiction. Why? Because there is no different currency involvements. And if you remember the definition of what is international finance, there is an interaction of two different currencies. Interaction of two different currencies. That is what the point we want to be clear here. So transaction risk is the risk faced by the company when making a financial transaction between the jurisdiction. The risk is the change in the exchange rate before the transaction settlement. This is the very important. See, all we know very well about that the international transactions are take place with the credit transactions. So there will be 30 days, 60 days, 90 days credit transactions will be there in the practice. During this practice, yes, at the time of entering into the contract, the contractual rate is different, and before the settlement with a particular time, if it is of 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days, within the particular time, within the particular settlement date, the transaction cost may increase. Many a times it will increase. If we have a contract with high value transacting currencies countries, for example, countries like US, European countries, obviously there will be a changes before the settlement. Essentially, the time delay between the transaction and settlement is the sources of transaction risk. Yes, of course. The reason why what they are telling is if the settlement is happening immediately, cash and carry, obviously this risk will not be there. But in an international scenario, immediate cash and carry is not possible. Uh, Cash in advance is possible. You know very well about what are all the modes of payments. Cash in advance is different, but settlement of full payment is absolutely not possible at the time of entering into the contract itself. The transaction risk can be mitigated by using contracts options. Mitigating, the legal term mitigating is transferred or reduced. Transfer in the sense you can transfer this mitigating risk if you are having a collecting agents. Kindly remember the payment options. Payment options. So there is a consignment. Consignment, a type of consignment we discussed in the payment method. In the consignment, third party will collect all your money. At that time, if you have appoint a special consignment agent, he will bear the risk, and with the option contract also entering into the option contract parallelly, you can reduce this risk, not avoid, reduce this risk. This is what we call as transaction risk. What is economical risk? What is economical risk? Economic risk is also known as forecast risk. See, the next what we are going to discuss is the derivative contracts. We have different derivative contracts, what we call as forward futures and options. At the time of entering, see, I'm entering into the contract to hedge myself from the risk. Sometimes the hedging itself become a risk. The hedging itself become a risk. I'll give you an example. Listen, I am entering into the contract, forward contract, that 90 days contract. I am entering to get US dollars for 80 rupees. I am enter two persons are required, buyer and seller. As of now, keep it in mind, buyer and seller. Technically, these people will have technical names. When we enter into that derivative contract, I will let you know. As of now, buyer and seller. Buyer agrees to buy US dollars for rupees 80 by the same time after 90 days. Seller is also agreed upon this contract. The settlement date, 90th day by the same time. In the spot market, the dollar is available for 78.5 rupees. 78.5 rupees. As a buyer, why should I want to go and execute this contract to get this US dollars for 80 rupees? What I thought at the time of entering into the contract, within 90 days, if the dollar prices increases, what will happen? That is why I entered into the contract. But now contract become a risk. The execution of contract itself become a risk. Why? In a spot market, the same dollar is available for 78 rupees or 79 rupees, even 79 rupees. 1 rupee per dollar I want to pay extra to this seller. As a buyer, I will have a second thought that whether we want to execute this proposal or not. By the same time, the other end seller will willing to execute this contract. Why? Because in a spot market, he will get only 79 rupees. In this contract, he will get 80 rupees. Economical risk. Economical risk. That is also there. See, what we are talking is to minimize the risk. For that, we are taking a decision. We want to enter into the contract, but entering into the contract itself becomes a risk. Sometimes, not many times. Okay. Why this is happening? The reason behind this is we are not observe the market very frequently, or we are not getting the full information about what is going to happen in the near future. For a better understanding, I'll let you know with a simple example. Uh, in the state of Tamil Nadu and Kerala, elections is going to happen in this next month. And popularly around this state of Tamil Nadu, there is a wide talk that after this election, there will be a lockdown. This is a mere statement, hypothetical statement. What I am doing here is, the person who is there in Tamil Nadu, immediately he is rushing to the provision shop and he started consuming a bulk quantities of required provisions and keep it as a store. Suppose if consistently people are started buying, by getting this information, people are started buying, automatically there will be the inflation in price. Why? Because supply, in a very short term, supply we can't able to increase. By the same way, the demand is increasing, due to which the prices will start inflating. What happens after election? Unfortunately, there will not be any lockdown after the election. What happens to me now? Obviously, because of the information, I was landed up in one action that action itself becomes the risk now. Why? Because before that, for an example, pulses or any dal variety, it went to the price of 120 rupees. Now the same pulses or dal will be available for 100 rupees or 108 rupees. Think it in an individual perspective. By the same time, think it in a business perspective. Economic risk. That is what forecasting. Economic risk is also known as forecasting risk, is the risk that a company market value is impacted by unavoidable exposure to the exchange rate of fluctuations. Exactly relate this with the international market. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a round of talk that this United States dollar rate will get increased by the June of the same year. Immediately, importers and exporters started reacting towards this information according to their own position. If they are exporter, they will act accordingly. By the same way, importer is having different perspective to act upon. What happens now? At the time of June, the upside down situation happens. That is, that dollar value got depreciated. That will not happen, just for an example. Depreciate. What will happen? Economical risk due to fluctuations of uh, currency values. Such a type of risk usually created by macroeconomic conditions. Very important point, ladies and gentlemen. Macroeconomic points such as geopolitical instability, government regulations, very important government regulations. Why? Because when you are entering into the contract with the United States at the time of January 1st, 2021, your settlement date is 31st March 2021. In between, that Joe Biden government decided to go for a fixed rate system for the next 30 days to balance their economy or to reduce the inflation or to motivate more exports. Example, for an example I am taking. Suddenly what happens? At your settlement date, the fixed rate system will be followed by that economy. But while entering into the contract, you are entered the contract with a fluctuating system, but you are landed up in fixed rate fixed rate economic system. If the fixed rate is less than the fluctuating rate at the time of entering into the contract, well and good, no problem. What happens if it is increases? And one more thing, I was thinking on this part, which I would like to tell at the beginning of the session, but I'm sorry, I forgot that. In this contractual obligations, a person loss is the another person's profit. Please keep it in mind how we are assuming that a risk is not avoidable. This is a second scenario. You always want to keep it in mind that one person's profit is another person. I'll put it in this way. One person's suffering is another person's enjoyment. The first person who loses, the second person who gains. Opposite party in the contractual relations. Take our example, as it is our example, 70 rupees and 68 rupees. He entered into the contract for getting US dollars for 70 rupees. By the same way, seller is also agreed to sell for 70 rupees. But in a spot market, it is available for 69 rupees. If at all the seller is coming down to 69 rupees, the contract will get executed. By the same way, 69 rupees, 1 rupees, according to the contractual obligations, 1 rupees is lost to the particular person. By the same way, the 1 rupee loss will be the gain to the particular person who is the buyer. So that is what the main important assumption behind this working of this market. One person loss is another person gain. So here are some examples which is given to understand the basic understandings of what is economical risk is all about. For an example, Canadian furniture company that sells locally face economic risk from the furniture importer, especially if the Canadian currency unexpectedly strengthens. This is what it is in a difficult terminology, which I explained in a simple terminology. That is what we call as economical risk. Next, we are moving to the transactional risk. This is one particular peculiar risk which is not easy to understand, but I'll try my level best for you people to make you people understand. Transactional risk, known as transactional exposure, refers to the risk faced by a company headquartered domestically but conditioning business in foreign jurisdiction. A company which is having a headquarters in particular place, for example in India, having a control over the business in foreign jurisdiction, centralized business. This is the companies, or this is the business format where centralized business is in pattern, foreign jurisdiction, and of which the company's financial performance is denoted in its domestic currencies. The transactional risk is higher when the company holds greater position of its assets and liabilities or equities in foreign currencies. See, the country's headquarters is situated in India, but the values are converted in dollars and maintained accounts in India. What happens here? It's a mere currency risk, value of currency risk. But this is mainly based by the company which is having headquarters and operations in different places. How to avoid this risk? First, we will see the example, then I will tell you how to avoid this risk. For example, a parent company in the sense who is situated in a domestic company that reports in Canadian dollars, but overseas subsidies are based in China, faces the translational risk as the subsidies of financial performances, which is Chinese yuan, is translated to Canadian dollar for reporting purposes. See, simply, we will take a simple calculation, simple math to understand this. If any person is asking you what is the net worth of this company, if it is, you are expressing that it is 1400 million, 1400 million. If the same thing, if it is reflected in United States, the dollars, we want to mention dollar with million or billion or lakhs. So $1,400 million, $1,400 million, $140 million. So the value, the quantum, what it is mentioned there, and what the quantum you are mentioning in the domestic purpose will differ for the decision making purpose. That is what we call as translational risk. Majorly, the company is having difference of currency rates and maintaining of accounts in a different places will face this. Yes, sir. So far we discussed what is the risk, what are all the different types of risk, out of which particularly what is the financial risk, and financial risk classifications, transactional, and economical. So is there any way to overcome this, or to maintain the same level of risk, or to reduce the level of risk? Yes, we are very deliberately know that we can't avoid the risk. That's what we call as in a finance, it is called as hedging. Protect yourself from the risk. That is what we call as hedging. Hedging is nothing but, the term hedging is nothing but risk can be protected through some activities, some financial transactional activities. That is what we call as hedging. So just for your understanding, I'll tell you what is hedging is all about. Hedging is referred to buying an asset designed to reduce the risk of loss from another asset. From another asset. Hedging in finance is a risk management strategy. So it is very clear that it is a risk management strategy that deals with reducing, and very wrong word we are using here, eliminating. We can't eliminate, but to some extent. What you want to understand, entire elimination is not possible. To some extent, we can eliminate the risk of uncertainties. The risk of uncertainties. I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, two interchangeable words what we are using here is risk and uncertainty. Both are interchangeably using, but that is very wrong. Both are different. Risk is different, uncertainty is different. I'll let you for the discussion about this risk and uncertainty. Thank you. I'll tell you one small differences for uncertainty and risk. And I left to your discussion. Uncertainty and risk is having one difference, which is one is predictable, one is not predictable. Okay. What we are discussing here is predictable one. Uncertainty is not predictable. We can't able to predict what is going to happen in the near future. So to some extent, which are all predictable risk can be avoided, or can, to the some extent it can be avoided through hedging. That is what the basic understanding you want to know all about. I'll tell you, all the people you are there in final years, anyhow you are going to fly with colors very soon. If you go for any interviews in any big companies like a Deloitte, Grant Thornton, or any JP Morgan, any kind of financial companies, first they will ask this question. Why? Because the risk management now become very popular in all the companies. What is the difference between uncertainty and risk? You want to be in a position to answer this. For that, you want to have a clarity. So this is the major difference in dealing with uncertainty and risk. So this is a financial strategy. This deals with a financial strategy. What deals with a financial strategy? Hedging. Hedging deals with a financial strategy with reducing and eliminating the risk of uncertainty. It helps to restrict. Is this the right word? Apt word. It helps to restrict the loss that may arise due to unknown fluctuations in the price of investments. Wonderful definition. Okay. So it is very clear that it is going to restrict to some extent. That is what the main important thing what is hedging is all about. Yes, with the hope that you people understand what is hedging is all about. Quickly we will know. Why do we need hedging? Do we need hedging? Yes. Why do we need hedging? It is what the next slide which is going to helps us to understand. First one, it can be used for locking of profits. Practically, I will teach how you can lock the profit, stop loss. Some technical things are there. The later slides, what we are going to discuss, all those things. Before that, you can understand that it helps to fix your profits. It helps to fix the ceiling of profits. Okay, that is what the point which you want to understand from this. Second one, enable the traders to survive in a hard market period. This is a very important aspect which I want to spend a little more time, because everyone is facing the recession. See, if the economy is facing the recession, it will be applicable to all the industries. But how I am surviving even in this hard situation depends upon the smart. That is why the hedging, which is called as strategy. And one more thing I want to remember to you, the same strategy itself become a risk. You all know very well. With the spot and forward markets, we entered into the market for 70, but in the spot market is available for 60. At this situation, the contract itself become a risk. That is different, entirely different. That will not happen all the time. So enable for surviving purpose. Even though in this pandemic is one of the greatest example where many companies, the MSME, medium and small scale industries, they shut down their companies and many people winded up their own businesses because no working flows are there, no free flows of transactions are happening. So hard to survive. Even in that situation, if you survive, then you become the survival of the fittest. It limits losses to the great extent. Last slide will explain us that to restrict to the some extent, but it is very clear that to great extent. 10 rupees loss will come, but through hedging, 8 rupees I can protect myself and 2 rupees is loss. Simple thing, ma. If you if you look into the insurance companies, if any losses, third party losses, if you claim for any third party losses, obviously the loss will get minimized. Loss is a loss. If you go and hit your car or a bike, loss is a loss. You may have a 3 lakh, 4 lakh worth of a bike, but 60% claim will be there. So 6 twos are 12, 1,20,000. Obviously, you will get back from the insurance company. So anyhow, 2 lakh rupees loss will be minimized to 80,000. Unless otherwise, if I'm not having any insurance, I myself want to face the loss of entire 2 lakhs. So to the greater extent, it is possible for us to hedging. Hedging helps us to protect ourselves from the greater risk. As it facilitates the investors to invest in various assets classes, therefore increase liquidity. Yes, whenever you are started investing, liquidity plays an important role. And whenever we are talking about the market, market means liquidity. We know very well, we discussed a lot about that. It also helps in saving time as long-term traders is not required to monitor or adjust the portfolio in a daily volatility. See, if you are an intra trader, that is, if you are working for speculation, you want to sit in front of the computer for hours together and you want to watch the market always. Why? Because you are a speculator, you are not an investor. By the same way, if you are an investor and who are having the hedging as a strategy, you don't want to mind about the daily fluctuations or daily volatility of the market. Why? Because already you have a strategic plan or strategic backup. If anything goes wrong in a particular spot market, you have a backup with us. So that will help us to reduce the risk to the greater extent. And it offers a flexible price mechanism. It requires lower margin outlay. We will talk this in the forward contract where it is very aptly fixed there itself. So it offers a flexible price mechanism. How much, see, to the greater extent the hedging will help you. To what extent your hedging want to help you depends upon the premium what you are paying. See, 2 lakh rupees bike, I will pay insurance for 10,000 rupees every year. I will get 1,20,000. In the same way, I'm not in a position to pay 10,000 rupees every year, but I can pay only 5,000 every year. Obviously, you will get only 60,000 rupees. To what extent you want to protect yourself, that much cost is there to protect yourself. The main thing you want to know, flexible price mechanism. Following with that, it gives the trader protection against the commodity price change fluctuations, inflation, anything comes, economic activity, any activity, sudden inflations, anything comes will not affect when you are strategically strategically utilize these hedging options in your business. In hedging, using options provides a trader opportunity to practice a complex option trading. Option is separate chapter what we are going. separate slide, we are going to discuss what are all the options, different types of options, put option, call option, purchase power parity theory. In that, in detailed manner, we will discuss all those things. It helps to increasing liquidity in a financial market. Market, finance, liquidity, all are in a linear line. So this is how hedging will help us to protect ourselves to the greater extent from the loss. By the same way, parallel to which you want to pay the premium, risk premium, how much you want to share your risk, that much quantum of premium will also you want to pay. So that is how this hedging is going to work, ladies and gentlemen. And this slide will help you what are all the different hedging techniques and where are all the places we can use these hedging techniques. So I'll stop here. If you have any queries, as usual, by the next class, put it in the chat box. I am happy to answer all your queries. Thank you so much. Continue to be safe. And thank you, Dr. Disha. Thank you so much.